So you're thinking about moving to Bend, Oregon, but you heard this place sucks and that there's just negative review after negative review. You're not sure exactly where that review came from or who said it, but you heard about it. And so it kind of sticks in the back of your mind. Well, in today's video, we're going to be addressing some of those negative reviews to see if they're actually fact or fiction. So if this video sounds like it's for you, then stick around because we're going to be getting after this right now. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living, eating, sleeping, working, playing, the good and the bad, what sucks in Bend, Oregon, then subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell below so you can be the first to know about the current market in Bend, Oregon. My name's Ryan and I've lived in Bend for over 30 years. My business partner, Zach, and I, we get calls and texts every day from people just like you, looking for help on making their move to Bend, Oregon, and we absolutely love it. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even set up a Zoom meeting. We'd be happy to help you make that smooth move to Bend, Oregon, or anywhere nearby. So, like I stated in the intro today, we're going to be doing a tour of the reviews of Bend, Oregon. So there's a couple different websites that we're going to refer to today. We're just going to kind of go in there live, a little bit blind, and just kind of react to what we're reading about so we can address whether or not the negativity that's associated with Bend, Oregon is true, or if it's false, or where we're at somewhere in the middle. So what we're going to do is just hop into the computer right now, do a little screen share, and we'll be off and running to address some of the negativity associated with living in Bend, Oregon. So we're going to share the screen here, and we're going to be off to the races with today's video. Okay, guys, so we're right in front of the computer now. What we're going to be doing is checking out Bend. What we do with every single video that we start out from a map perspective is take a look at where Bend is in association with the state of Oregon, some of the surrounding cities. We've got Portland up here in the northwest corner of Oregon. Bend is situated right in the center of the state. The red outline here is going to be Deschutes County, and then what we have is Bend, Oregon, right there, smack dab in the middle of the county. And so where we're at is with a high desert climate. We're a little bit isolated here. The mountains kind of run just to the west. It's about a 5,000 to 6,000 base layer of the mountains in terms of elevation. And then some of those peaks, Mount Bachelor, Broken Top, the Three Sisters, Mount Jefferson, and all the way north up to Mount Hood, they peak out anywhere between 8,500 to about 11,000 feet in elevation. So we got a big base layer, kind of a barricade, and it separates the west side of the mountains and the east side of the mountains. And they're two different climates, two very distinct different climates. The majority of the population of Oregon lives over in the Willamette Valley. And so what we're going to see is that they get a lot of rain, a lot more cloud coverage. And that's kind of the stigma that's associated with the state of Oregon with the weather. But on the other side, the east side of the mountains where we live, that's more of a desert, high elevation climate, and there's a lot less cloud coverage because those clouds come over from the Oregon coast, they wind up covering the Willamette Valley, and then they get blocked at the mountain range, and they kind of dissipate from there. And so us on the east side of the mountains, we get all this sunshine and high desert climate, a lot less humidity, so it's much drier, if you will, and it's a very pleasant climate to live in. But for some reason, not just weather related and climate related, there's still some people out there that have a problem with Bend. And so what we want to do today is kind of address some of that and see what's true, what's not so true, because there is some negativity with Bend, right? Just like anywhere in the world, it's not going to be perfect no matter what. There's going to be a couple negative things that are associated with anywhere you want to go. If I'm thinking about Hawaii right now, I love the idea of the weather, but for me, just off the top of my head, it's pretty darn isolated, right? I don't want to get island fever and stuck in one place at one time. If I want to go somewhere real quick on a whim, I want to be able to do that. But in Hawaii, I might be limited. Okay, so that's what comes to mind. Outside of that, it sounds amazing. But anyway, back to Bend. Let's address some of this stuff right now. We're going to hop into a couple of these websites, niche.com as well as bestplaces.net. They do a good job of collecting data regarding any particular area that you might be looking into. And so Bend is no exception. There's all kinds of information within these websites right now, but what we're going to do is just check out the review categories of these websites so we can address some of the stuff that people have been whining about when it comes to Bend to see if it's actually true, fact, or if it's false, fiction. So let's just jump in right now. I'm at niche.com right now. I've just moved over to this website. And so what we're going to do is we've gone right to the review section and we've clicked on the poor and terrible review sections of Bend. And so what we're going to do right now is just kind of go through a couple of these and see what's going on with the negativity associated with Bend. So let's just pick a couple right now. Ruined by leftism, used to be a decent ski town where people didn't care about politics, but where somewhat liberal, radical leftists, and wealthy Californians have once ruined the beautiful town. Okay, so there's been a lot of people that have moved into town over the last few years, but the reality is that Bend has seen an influx of population over the last 50 years. And even beyond that, Bend was incorporated back in the early 1900s, and it became a slow growth area, a little bit isolated. There's no doubt about that. But as the cat came out of the bag, so to speak, when Mount Bachelor opened up back in the 1960s, it became more of a tourist destination with the skiing and the winter recreation. We've always had the outdoor amenities for the summers, the great weather, the lakes up in the mountains. And then once people started to move in, we added golf courses and we added other things like Phil's Trail, all kinds of things that attract a lot of people that love to be outdoors. So a lot of people have moved from California. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's all left-wing type people, but it's certainly become a little bit more left-leaning. Although, albeit we're still probably right somewhere in the middle there. It's not necessarily super left. It's not necessarily super right. It's somewhere right in the middle. And that's kind of where we're at today. So again, is it worth being a 2-star review because so many people have moved here from California and that are left leaning? I don't think so. Next one. Bend is where I grew up. It used to be a small town where when you told someone where you lived, they had no idea what you were talking about. I miss that. It was friendly and everyone knew everyone. It was cheap and fun. Oregon in general is amazing, and I would still be living there if it wasn't so stupid expensive. Other than the growing population of homelessness, the growing population of the town altogether, expensive living costs and horrible condition, air condition, it's the best. Beautiful mountains from the highway. You can see Sisters and it's beautiful. Skiing is super fun. The old mill is super cute and I would go there all the time. I love it. Downtown is actually really nice, super lush and just beautiful in all seasons. I would only recommend living there if you make good money. In conclusion, I just miss my old little hippie hometown. Even though it's pretty bad now, I wouldn't call any other place my home. So this person gave it a 2-star review, rattled off a few things that they didn't really like about it, and then all of a sudden they started talking about the good things that they did like about it in the first place. So yes, with growth is going to come some growing pains. Bend is going to be one of those towns that is growing at a very alarming rate. We're at a very, very desirable location, not just with the mountains and the good weather and all that stuff right here in the central area of Oregon, but in proximity on the West Coast. We've got great infrastructure in place right now that allows people from Seattle, people from San Francisco, people from LA, people from other parts of California to fly in with direct flights. And they're just an hour away or maybe 2 hours away in terms of flights. And they're direct right to our local airport, which is 15 miles away up in Redmond. So what that means is that people are going to be coming through here and they're going to realize that it's very convenient to come visit. And eventually, some of those people are going to love it so much when they visit that they may want to end up considering moving here. With influx and a boom of population is going to come all kinds of growing pains. People want to blame the city council. People want to blame the city of Bend because they're not keeping up with the infrastructure. Well, guess what? It's actually kind of difficult to keep up with that when things are moving so rapidly, especially over the last couple years. A lot of people have recency bias with that certain pandemic that was going around all over the world, not just Bend, mind you. People want to blame Bend because there's so many people that wound up moving here during a pandemic. Well, there was all kinds of weird stuff and crazy stuff that happened where people were moving from this place to that place, leaving California. A lot of people were moving to California and moving all over the western region of the United States. And not just Bend, but all over. Other really awesome small towns in the western region of the United States were wound up getting a lot of people moving there, not just from California, but from all over. Relocation everywhere. But for some reason, people that are in Bend kind of have a little bit of a recency bias, and they think that it's just Bend where people from California are moving to. Obviously a silly thing to think, but that's just the way people operate, especially if they're small town locals. They've been here for a long time, and they want to be very protective of what they once had, which was a bunch of single lane roads, only one road going through North and South 3rd Street, which had stop and go lights. And now we have a parkway, which is acting like kind of a makeshift freeway. And we have all kinds of construction going on all over the town. The reality is once you hit a certain threshold with growth, you're going to wind up seeing a huge boom in population. And Bend has kind of hit that point over the last couple of years. And so that's simply where we're at. We just got to deal with it. But again, this person here was whining about some of the things associated with their former small town, that hippie town that they once loved. But at the same time, they were still defending it because they still love it and it's still their hometown. All right, why don't we go to a terrible review and see what this person, a couple of these people have to say. I just want to see what kind of negativity is associated with people that just provokes their emotions into wanting to get onto these websites and actually provide a negative 1-star review. So, superlicious, pretentious snob noses live here. Welcome to La La Land. Nobody can drive here. You can just make it up as you go. Forget about turn signals. Cops serve the wealthy have taken over the town with oversaturated woke youth. $2K for 1 bedroom, and you better be ready to pay $40 for 2 hamburgers. Socialism and communism welcomed here. Ultimately, this place makes me want to puke. Naturally speaking, it's beautiful, but the people are bottom of the barrel, shiny turds. You might be driving a Tesla and living on a hill, but you're still garbage. F Bend, Oregon. Okay. A lot of things to unpack here. This guy's pretty upset. It seems like he's a little emotionally pent up. If I were to go ahead and just address what my initial response is to this review, let's say the increase in prices of everything, inflation, has kind of gone up all over the board. It's not just here in Bend, Oregon. This person, again, has recency bias, and he thinks that $40 for 2 hamburgers is something that only exists in Bend, Oregon. Rent has obviously gone up. There were so many people that wound up moving up to Bend from California or down from Seattle or from Portland right at the beginning of that pandemic in 2020. So again, people have so much recency biases associated with the cost of living. And the cost of living is a little bit higher than the national average here in Bend. But for those people that are moving from other areas, the primary majority of people where they're moving from, Seattle, Portland, Eugene, and in various spots in California and some in Arizona, the cost of living is actually much higher in those areas, and they're bringing that here. I get if you've been a local here for a long time, it's going to force feed an increase in prices for just daily goods. Going out to restaurants, you're going to have to wait longer for restaurants and things of that nature. But the reality is wherever you go in this country, especially over the last couple of years, prices have increased like crazy. Inflation is no joke. And just because our government printed off so much money doesn't mean that Bend, Oregon is the only place that is affected by that inflation. It happened everywhere. What we're noticing now from a real estate standpoint is that the market peaked out and now it's starting to taper off, okay? And so prices are starting to come down. The cost of rent is starting to come down. When it comes to purchasing, people that want to buy a home don't have to worry about buyer's fatigue the way they did in the last couple of years. 12 months ago to 24 months ago, buyer fatigue was a real thing where you would go into the market as a potential buyer and you would realize very quickly that you have to put a full cash offer or maybe an offer above asking just to get into the conversation after a house goes onto the market a couple days later. So the reality is you would go into this buyer's opportunity to try and find a home and you would be basically outbid immediately. And it became exhausting because you got very emotionally attached to this house and then another house and then another house. And all of a sudden you realize that you were outbid every single time. And then eventually you just left the market because it just wasn't healthy. Now things are starting to taper back, okay? Inflation has peaked to a certain extent. It might go up a little bit more, who knows? But the reality is that we're seeing houses starting to come down in price. They're staying on the market a little bit longer. And so what that forces owners and sellers to do is bring their price points down. So it becomes back into more of a healthy state of the market. Rent is the exact same thing. It's happening again. Prices are coming down a little bit. Real estate is usually the last thing to react and respond to a crazy shift in any type of economic market. And so that's what we're seeing right now. You can whine about the $40 for 2 burgers, but you know what? You're going to be going just about anywhere else and you're going to be paying a premium in comparison to what those prices for goods or services were 5 years ago in each respective market. So it's just the reality of what it is. This person's talking about inflation. Guess what? Inflation exists everywhere. It's just one of those things that you just have to deal with. We're all in this together and we have to figure out a way to coexist and adjust to what's happening in this world right now. So another very emotionally pent up review, in my opinion, that basically isn't targeting just Bend, but it also could be addressed to everywhere in the country right now with what we're dealing with. We're all in this together. Let's do one more here, and then we'll call it a quick day here in the video. Maybe we'll go over to bestplaces.net, another very cool website. Talks about cost of living. If you're moving here from Seattle, if you're moving from LA, maybe from San Francisco, or maybe from anywhere in the country, you can actually go onto this website and you can type in Bend, Oregon, add a second city, compare cost of living. We'll do a couple videos like that here in the near future so we can give you some perspective on that. But anyway, let's go back to this real quick. Let's find a negative review. Bend used to be charming. This is September 17th of 2021. When I moved to Bend, it was still a charming city of about 50,000 people. The population has now more than doubled, and the once clean, quiet community is a noisy, dirty, traffic-filled mess. The newcomers come in and outbid locals with cash offers. They are rude, obnoxious, and generally a complete PETA. Pain in the ass, it seems like. Okay. The popular local parks, trails, and recreation areas are overrun with people and their trash. I'm looking forward to retiring, I assume, somewhere else. Okay, elsewhere. Very good. All right, so this guy used to live here. He moved here when there was 50,000 people. Guess what? There was 50,000 people right around the year 2000. So come on. This guy hasn't even been here that long. He's been here for 22, 23 years, and here he is acting like he's a snobby local himself. Okay, I was here before that. I don't act like that. Other people shouldn't act like that either necessarily, but the reality is he's upset because he feels like this place has grown too fast. Well, guess what? There were probably people back in the 1980s and 90s that felt the same way about this guy when he moved into town back in the year 2000, 2002, 2004, when Bend had 50,000 people. So it's just a cycle. It repeats. This guy became, I don't know, he became sort of entitled, I guess, a local, if you will. And so now that the town that he once was attracted to is attractive to other people, and they want to do the same thing that he did. So again, people are very biased. They get emotionally wound up, and they say things that don't necessarily, I don't know, they don't seem like they're real, but that's just the way it is. So again, Bend is growing at a very alarming clip. We get that. I mean, that can be a negative thing. It's something that we just have to deal with. The city of Bend is working very, very hard to keep up and learn what the best route of future development is to accommodate the massive growth that is happening right now. Local parks are relatively clean, in my opinion, and they're not overrun. Yes, we have crazy tourist seasons, and sometimes in the summertime, it just feels overwhelming because if we have 100,000 people in this town today, it could feel like there's 250,000 people in any given moment during the summertime, and a little bit less so in the shoulder seasons and winter seasons, but there's always people here that are tourists because, again, this isn't one of those things where people move here and then all of a sudden they get to have this sense of entitlement where it's like they're a local and they have to deal with all this tourists, all the tourism that comes into town. These people were once tourists themselves, and then they became residents, and now they're having to deal with the exact thing that they were providing locals when they were visiting before they moved here. So again, it's a small town. It's becoming a bigger town. These are the growing pains that are associated with any small town in America that has a booming population and a good reason to move here. So it's not just Bend, it's just the way it is anywhere you go where it's a very, very desirable place to live. So again, what we found out today, we looked through a couple different reviews. They all seemed a little bit emotionally biased towards whatever experience these people particularly had during their stay and time living in Bend. Maybe they still live here. Some of them were even defending their town after providing a negative review. But the reality is this: Bend is a very charming town. It's a very desirable place to live. And the reality is Bend will continue to do this exact thing over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Bend is going to be an absolute wonderful place to live, raise a family, retire. The weather is spectacular. The outdoor amenities are second to none. There's so much to do here, and it's just going to continue to get better and better as we continue moving forward with time. So if Bend is still something that's on your radar after watching this video, which I hope it is, We would love to help you make a smooth move to Bend, Oregon, and help you understand where in town may be a good fit for you. So maybe it's Bend, maybe it's somewhere else in Central Oregon. Redmond, Tumalo, Terrebonne, Lapine, Prineville, Sun River. There's all kinds of flavors of Central Oregon, and Bend is not just the only one. If you love the Central Oregon lifestyle, you love the weather, you love the proximity to the mountains, to the golf courses, to the lake life, to the weather, we get up to 300 days of sunshine a year. It's not very densely humid here during the summer months. It's a very mild climate. Yes, we get some winter-like weather. Sometimes it drags on for a while. That's something you have to adjust to, especially if you are from California or Texas or Arizona. But you know what? We're just a quick bird away. Direct flight from any of those towns if you want to get away for a weekend, for a week, for a month, or maybe you are a 6-month on, 6-month off type, and you want to have options in both areas. So again, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even set up that Zoom meeting. We'd love to help you out with whatever those real estate needs are and show you around town. So again, my name's Ryan, licensed broker with eXp Realty. My partner Zach and I, we work hard on these videos every day to try and provide value. So when it's your time, you want to give us a call so we can help you find the right spot that would be a good fit for you here in Bend or anywhere else in Central Oregon. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you around town or just on the next video.